All right, hello, wine-drinking people. We are back with more coverage from the Great Wine Seminar. That's right, folks, the last tasting Sunday morning. Well, we did have a great dinner on Saturday night with Chef Mark Militello. Mark, some great stuff. And for dinner for 80 people can be a little tough, even for a superstar chef like Mark. I know some people said this wasn't cooked right, that wasn't cooked right, but, you know, cooking for a group of these 80 gourmets that come to this Great Wine Seminar is like being on Top Chef. Sorry, my pancetta wasn't crisp enough. Oh, the rabbit was a little overdone. Well, my rabbit was perfectly done. The pancetta wasn't quite as crisp as it could have been. But, man, the creamy polenta that he served with it was out of this world, as was the scallops, the bay scallops that were served with a black truffle sauce. Incredible. And my deer was cooked perfectly. So, for me, Mark, you get, 10 out of 10 for dinner on Saturday night. Absolutely fantastic. And you serve the George Blanc potato cakes to start out. Great stuff. And most people were looking forward to this seminar on Sunday morning because, hey, it's Miami, baby. It's one of the best markets in the country for Spanish wine. And Pablo Alvarez flew in late Saturday night. He didn't even make it to the dinner and then did his seminar and then flew out. Man, what a great guy. Even though he wasn't a ball of fire in terms of being a brilliant speaker, he was a little bit monotone, a little bit low. But, to have the managing director there to tell you about the wines. This is a property that has a history that goes back over 150 years. And, they produce the first cult wine of Spain, and they make legendary wines from a little Tempranillo, Cabernet, and Merlot for the most part, but there are other varietals planted there. I think they had Pinot Noir planted there at one time also. But this is one of the properties that when, Bordeaux had phylloxera, they came down and developed, and, some great Bordeaux varietal wines for a long, long time coming out of Vega. Most of the other properties in this area were, mostly Tempranillo based, even though you do see some Merlot and Cabernet down there today. And Clive Coates was pretty much finished for the weekend. Came up to Vega because he didn't know anything about French wines. So he did know a little bit about Vega, but he pretty much let Pablo do the work. And the first wine, the Valbuena, which is a little different blend than the Unico. It actually has Merlot instead of Cabernet in it. And Tempranillo, 85, 15, and that kind of range. 05 and 04, two very good vintages, but still very young. Even though these wines are released 5 years after the vintage by law or by Vega Sicilia law, they have to be. Rather, I don't think there's any law in Ribera that says they have to. But these wines still very young. Had a lot of toasty oak spice, that coffee, seductive, sweet kind of dill. These wines see American oak, American and French, I guess, today they put in the mix also. So you do notice that sweet kind of dill note coming from there. But a lot of black currants, kind of wild strawberry jam fruit. The 04 and the 05 pretty similar to me. Maybe the 05 just a little bit bigger. 04 kind of had a hint of cola as opposed to the vanilla in the 05, but both fantastic bottles of wine. The 01 maybe a little bit vegetal on the nose, but ripe currants and cherry fruit, a bit more herbal than the last two wines, but another great vintage in Ribera del Duero. The 2000 to me was just singing. This was my favorite wine in this flight. Well, hey, it was the oldest wine in the flight. Had this lovely sweet tobacco spice, currants, cassis berry fruit, a bit lighter than the first three. I'd call this the old dog, but Vegas wines last so long. Very smooth and silky on the tongue. A hint of pencil lead kind of minerality showing through on the finish. Really nice bottle of wine, this 2000. 2002 Unico wasn't considered a great vintage, In certain years they don't make Unico, but I'm surprised they did in 02. A nice wine. Had that kind of underbrush and sweet American oak spice to complement that black currant berry fruit there. And, still, well, not really ready yet. It's not even been released yet. The 2000 is the current release of Unico. And the 2000 Unico, man, fantastic wine. This is the longest wine that I know of that's held back before release, 10 years. And the wine has this lovely toasty oak nuance when it is young, this coffee, this soy, this exotic spice, as did the 1999 and the 1998. The 1996, you started to notice a little bit more of those secondary aromas coming through in the wine, less of that toasty oak and more the minerality, a bit more balanced, the 96. The 94, one of my favorite of all the present day Unicos. This wine is just stunning, a great vintage for a Barrel del Duero, and a full bouquet of currants, spiced tobacco, coffee, highlights of barnyard and truffle here. On the palate, this wine has got a lot of volume, tannin softening out around the edges, but still pretty big. This is a wine that's got some life ahead of it. You can keep for another 40 years or more based on the older wines that we had. The 87, maybe a little lighter of the old guys. The 82 had some lovely earth and herb nuance to that currant and black cherry fruits. and a lovely velvety note on the tongue with notes of coffee and toffee on the finish. The 72 had this pronounced fresh herbal and kind of spicy note, exotic, tangy flavors on the finish. Very evolved and, had that really nice savoriness on the end. The 70, wow. Man, the 70 Unico, every time I've had this wine, it just explodes in your mouth. It is a cornucopia of different flavors, cigar box, toffee, fresh earth, red berry, currant fruit. Still has some tannin to this wine and a lovely freshness. The 70 Unico may last another 30 years itself. 1968, a little bit more evolved here, but still some fruit, some currants, a nice smooth, silky texture. These old wines, very elegant and very classy. The 62, unfortunately, of the 2 bottles we had, Pablo opened and decanted all the wines and tasted them all to make sure that they were good. Made my life really easy. But the 62 we had was a little bit matterized, a bit of a disappointment, because this is a wine to me that always one of the great old Unicos whenever you see the 62, but our bottle was a bit off. The 53, magical. It was worth going to the seminar this whole weekend just to try the 53 Unico. I'd never had this wine before, but absolutely singing. Very complex, lovely coffee and toffee, dry tobacco spice. The fruit fading here a bit, but still a little bit left, still hanging on there. Still lovely freshness. Most excellent, man. That was one of the wines of the seminar to me. All right, we've got a few things from Vega available on this offer, so check it out. And next up, we've got a review of our 2006 Brunello tasting, and then I'm all caught up for last week.